Well, my friends, it is certainly that time of year again as we hit our 6-month stretch with the Pixel 10, and man, I have to say, it has been quite a journey since its original launch. At the time, it seemed like tensions were very high within the Android community. There was a lot of mixed opinions on whether the Pixel 10 was an actual good phone, or if it was a mid-range phone sold at a flagship price. But now, 6 months later, the dust has settled, a lot of other companies have released their flagships for the year, and we have a lot to think about now that the Pixel 10 has been out in the wild for the past 6 months. First, if you've been watching the channel for a while now, then you already know Dbrand is a huge supporter of high quality Android content. And if you already have a Pixel 10 or are considering picking one up, then their entire case lineup is certainly worth taking a look at. The grip case is one I've personally picked up so many times over the years. It has great texture on the side rails, still feels relatively thin, and has a perfect cutout on the back where you can choose from over 40 different skin designs for a super unique look. If you do want something more minimal, the Ghost 2.0 case keeps the original design of the phone fully visible while still giving you real, genuine protection, and that MagSafe ring does look pretty clean as well. Over the past 6 months, I've picked up a fair amount of micro scratches on the display, as you're about to see in this 6-month review. With that said, don't be like me. Their Prism 2.0 screen protector is designed to give you a perfect install every time, and it's one of those things that you will wish you've had since day one. 9 to 5 Google viewers get 15% off any case and Prism 2.0 bundle using the link in the description. So please, do me a favor and check them out, and thank you to Dbrand for sponsoring this Pixel 10 6-month later review. Now, let me give you a quick rundown on everything that's changed software-wise with the Pixel 10 since its original release. As we all know, Google is huge on software, and there's been a lot of changes since launch. This phone did release in August, and we got its first major update in September, where we got the absolutely massive Material 3 expressive UI overhaul. And with that came so many features. A complete UI redesign from top to bottom. We got weather effects on the lock screen, dynamic color improvements, an updated settings app with more colorful, more modern iconography, plus a few more features. Honestly, it was a pretty huge update to get just 1 month after the full official release, and it kept us busy for quite some time. October brought a minor security patch to fix some vulnerabilities, nothing really too crazy there. November gave us another feature drop where the Pixel 10 got power save mode for Google Maps, Pixel VIP contacts for all Pixel phones, AI notification summaries for the Pixel 9 and up. Magic Hue also got tweaked to give some more relevant suggestions, and finally we saw the release of Pixel theme packs. In December, we got another update that introduced lock screen widgets, new options to change the shape of your home screen icons, a notification organizer to group low priority notifications at the bottom of your list, and a continued rollout of the Material 3 expressive overhaul inside some of the more untouched areas of the operating system. January and February is where we got more updates, which were mostly stability focused at best, followed by a massive March feature drop that gave us close to a dozen new meaningful features, touching on AI, customization, and the core Android experience all at once. We got custom AI generated icons, the somewhat stable release of desktop windowing mode, a comfort view settings display that reduces visual stimulation. Magic Queue can recommend restaurants inside of your Google Messages conversations. You can offload simple tasks to Gemini now, like ordering on DoorDash, for example. We got the updated Now Playing app with the Material 3 expressive overhaul, plus so much more. No doubt it has been an absolutely massive 6 months for the Pixel 10 series, and that's before we get to some of the general software features that randomly get thrown in throughout the year, like iPhone to AirDrop functionality being a huge example. It was by far one of the best features to be added as of late, and it was added to the Pixel 10 first, while slowly being rolled out to the rest of the flagships as time goes on. But it is a huge benefit of getting the latest Pixel flagship. You get the newest features first with no waiting and no downtime. And speaking of getting those newest features first, the Pixel 10 series was marketed by all these new software additions, but how are they holding up 6 months after release? And my answer to that is, they're fine, I guess. At this point, 6 months later, a lot of the exclusive features for the Pixel 10 have either been passed down to previous phones, which is nice, don't get me wrong, or it hasn't really been useful, at least in my experience. Live voice translation during calls is absolutely amazing if you ever get the chance to use it. Real-time voice transcripts for declined calls is cool, and that's really it, guys. I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, guys, I swear, and I'm not trying to just be negative for the sake of it, but the rest of the new features on the Pixel 10 series have haven't really appealed to me, or I just simply haven't found them useful. For one, remember that daily hub feature that originally launched with the Pixel 10 but was pulled a few weeks later for improvements? Well, it's still not here 6 months after its original release. And at this point, I'm not sure if Google still intends on releasing it. If you do, check out their blog post right now at the time of this recording. Daily Hub is still advertised, so I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Magic Queue is another big, heavily advertised feature at launch. 6 months later, Google is still making improvements, and I commend them for it. It is getting better over time, and the integrations have become more frequent, thankfully. I'm seeing addresses show up automatically in Google Maps, and I'm seeing relevant topics in Google Search appear once in a while. It's even showing Google Keep Notes inside certain phone calls from time to time, so it's definitely improving bit by bit. I'm glad to say that it's not an in-your-face kind of feature, but it's also not incredibly useful as I would have liked it to be. During the past 6 months, I personally still haven't had one singular moment where I felt Magic Queue was suggesting something truly relevant. Like, it never suggested something that was actually helpful to me in that particular moment. Every suggestion that I received was close, like, yes, that is an address that I heard of at some point in my life, or yes, that is a topic that I cared about at one point in the past few months. But again, I never experienced that truly perfect, this is exactly what I needed and I can take its suggestion on the first try. Pixel Journal is another exclusive feature that was backported to the regular Pixel 9 and 8 series a few months back, and as a whole, I love the concept, but it still needs more work. Basically, right now you can submit an entry, Gemini gives you some feedback, and it introduces new prompts later so that you can pick up where you left off. In theory, it's a great addition to the Pixel ecosystem, but 6 months later, there's still no web portal, which is incredibly inconvenient as someone that tries to journal on a daily basis. But guys, the bigger issue is that Pixel Journal seems to be heavily censored to the point where I don't even want to use it in the first place. There was one instance where I brought up a situation involving alcohol as an example. As an adult, it's pretty common to have someone somewhere in your life struggle with it, or maybe you do yourself. And when I tried to journal about this alcohol situation with Pixel Journal, they would censor whatever insight I was supposed to get, and I'd get no follow-up prompts for future entries. At that point, it basically becomes a glorified note-taking app, and it's just way more effective to put my thoughts into a Google Keep Note and send it to Gemini, or now Claude these days, directly. That way I can get real, insightful information when I need it. Next up is hardware, and for the most part, everything is held up business as usual when it comes to the physical build of this phone. The Pixel 10 has Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the front and back, and with that, I've received some micro scratches on the screen and the back glass. Some of the metal components from Qi 2 accessories have created some faint marks on the back glass as well, but otherwise, this phone is still in great shape. What's really important to people is what's going on with the Tensor G5 chip inside of the phone, and that was the biggest talking point when the Pixel 10 was first released. And hey, it does make sense, don't get me wrong. It was Google's first fully custom chip. It was highly anticipated as the savior of all the issues from previous Tensor chips, and with that did come a lot of expectations. The end result, especially after 6 months of consistent use, is a chip that's largely fine with everything it needs to do, okay at best with everything else, and at this point, I don't have any more energy to complain about the Tensor G5. When this chip first came out, I went through a roller coaster of emotions, the 5 stages of grief, if you will. First was denial. No way this chip can be possibly that bad. Then came anger. How could Google fumble the bag so hard at this point? And then bargaining. Oh, maybe the Tensor G5 isn't that bad. Followed up with depression. How did we end up here? And then finally came acceptance. I've accepted that Tensor will never be the Snapdragon killer, or even a Snapdragon competitor, or even an Apple A series competitor, and it's not designed to be in any possible way. Peak performance for Pixel phones doesn't look like playing Genshin Impact at 120 frames, or being a content creator powerhouse rendering full-length videos. The Tensor G5, at least in my eyes, is optimized to capture the largest possible audience without going over a certain internal price point. The end result is an experience-first type of philosophy, and the reality is Google has accomplished that goal no matter how much a spec head like myself doesn't want to admit it. The thermals are much improved over previous generations, although an updated modem is probably more to thank for that. It's starting to do more AI features on device, and the entire operating system is perfectly smooth and fluid in day-to-day use, especially alongside all of these beautiful Material 3 expressive animations estimations. If you put this phone in the hands of someone who isn't a spec nerd and you ask them to compare it to the latest iPhone or the latest Galaxy, they would never be able to tell you that something is wrong with performance. And that's how I got to this state of acceptance. The experience at its core is a good one for 90% of the people considering to buy this phone. I have to be clear though, if you are a mobile gamer, I personally would skip this phone for a more dedicated gaming device like a OnePlus 15 perhaps, or get the Pixel 10 and go on ahead and get a Steam Deck. That would probably be a better use of your money. The Pixel 10 does handle a lot of basic games just fine, and even more advanced ones like COD Mobile or Destiny Rising, they run fine at medium graphics under 60 frames. There's no problem in that regard, but if you want max resolution at the max frame rate, the Pixel 10 is certainly not for you. That said, battery life is average at best on the base model Pixel 10. It can last a whole day, maybe 5 hours of on-screen time with my regular usage, but it's nowhere near the battery champs that have come out over the past few months, like the OnePlus 15R, or even the base model iPhone 17, or even worse, some of last year's phones like the Galaxy S25. If you want to go by data from GSM Arena, the Pixel 10 is the weakest flagship device in terms of battery life for all the base models out there, and that's an area that I desperately still want to see Google improve. If we're not going to get performance, that's fine. Why don't you give us some efficiency instead? To me, it is beyond embarrassing that the iPhone 17 with a 25% smaller battery can get almost 3 additional hours of usage than the base model Pixel 10, again, according to stats from GSM Arena. Pixel Snap is another new addition with the Pixel 10, and it is by far my #1 most appreciated feature. No doubt, it is a very noticeable loss when I go to other devices. With the Pixel 10, I've actually dived headfirst into the MagSafe ecosystem. I bought a cheap wallet attachment and just never carry a wallet anymore. I still use the Pixel Snap stand ring, although I lost one of the screws, so I'll need to replace it sometime soon. The Pixel Snap charger is absolutely awesome. I love seeing the weather or a Google Photos slideshow on my desk while I work. Having this feature built into the phone is easily one of those surprise and delight type of experiences that make it actually fun to engage with your device. Yes, if you have an older model Pixel, of course, you can just add a case and get a similar experience. Everything will be perfectly fine in that regard. But I have to say, even though other devices out there like the Galaxy S26 series or the OnePlus 15 are amazing, I have a hard time considering to even switch to them because they don't have the magnets. Once you have the phone with the magnets built in, it really feels like a step backward going back to something else. Lastly, I wanted to close out this long-term review chatting about the camera real quick, and I have to say, the camera downgrade on the base model Pixel 10 feels like it just went a little bit too far. I get it, Google wants this tiered system where the Pixel 10a has a dual camera system and the Pixel 10 has a triple, then the Pixel 10 Pro has the best possible sensors. We've seen this story a million times, and trust me, I do get it. But messing with the base model Pixel 10, which I assume is one of your most popular devices, really, truly hurts me after 6 months of use. To be clear, the photos are excellent on this phone, so I guess I have nothing to complain about. It always gives me reliable images, especially compared to the 200 megapixel S24 Ultra that I've been playing around with as of late. That 2-year phone might have way better lenses than the Pixel 10, but I find myself retaking shots due to shutter lag way more often than I should be. The Pixel 10, however, gets every shot right the first time. Google's computational photography is no doubt the best in the business. Whether it's sunlight, low light, cityscapes, or astrophotography, the Pixel 10 always gets you something extremely usable. So at this point, why am I even upset? It's because the Pixel 10 is a noticeable downgrade from the Pixel 9, and nighttime photos have suffered the most. Because of that, I don't feel like I'm getting that bang for your buck anymore with the base model Pixel. If you want to compare it to the iPhone 17 or even last year's Pixel 9, the 10 just doesn't take images that are as good in terms of sharpness and clarity. I find the base model Pixel phones, starting with the Pixel 10, isn't the absolute champion of camera quality anymore. It's more than fine for the average person, but disappointing for me as someone who knew how prestigious Pixel cameras were in the early days. At this point, I feel like a lot of phones in a similar price range can be very competitive with the base model Pixel 10, which is something strange to me, as that never used to be the case. And my friends, there you have it, my 6-month overview covering the most important aspects of the Pixel 10. I'd say it's a good phone and maybe even a great phone for the right person, but unfortunately, it's not a particularly exciting one. And that's what I think a lot of the core members of the community are bothered by. It's never going to win a spec war. It doesn't have any of these standout features like we saw saw with the Galaxy S26 Ultra, for example, with Horizon Lock or the privacy screen. Hardware-wise, there's just not much going on, and if you're someone that enjoys that aspect of the tech world, this device might feel a little bit boring to you. That said though, if I was the average consumer, I would be totally happy with the Pixel 10 on a carrier deal. You get good cameras, a well-designed phone, and the best software in the business. But as someone who reviews these phones for a living, day in and day out, I feel like I can't just say this is for the average consumer and call it a day anymore. Honestly, it's just getting a little tiring saying that over and over again. Oh, the cameras aren't as good, but for the average consumer, it's great. Oh, the battery isn't as good, but for the average consumer, it's great. Every time we have to acknowledge that an aspect isn't as good as other devices in a similar price range, but still good enough for the average consumer, I feel like we're introducing a little bit of apathy to the Pixel series. Like, anyone that grabs one of these phones needs to be a little indifferent and lower their expectations, and to me, that is an extremely dangerous place to be. In my opinion, Google should sincerely consider pushing the boundaries of the Pixel series in the traditional hardware sense, alongside the software improvements. We still need better processors, better battery life, faster charging, better camera lenses, smaller bezels, 256 gigs base storage. There is just so much opportunity to improve the Pixel lineup, and I really hope that Google is exploring some of these options for the Pixel 11 series. Regardless, let me know what you think in the comments about the Pixel 10 6 months later. If you have one, how are you feeling? Do you like your experience with it? If so, tell me what in particular is your favorite aspect of this phone, and please let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. Until next time, this has been Jordan Floyd with 9to5 Google. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.